What's important to you if you're on the shipping side of your business is that you ship on time. You got a supply chain metric for knowing what percentage of your shipments ship on time, okay? But think about that in the greater context of what it means to your customer. Does your customer care whether you shipped it on time? Does not, okay? Customer cares that you meet the promise that you made to the customer, okay? Does the marketing department and the sales department care whether you shipped on time? No, they don't care at all. They want to make sure that you meet all your promises because that's the commitment they made to the customers, and that's the basis for the sales relationship that they have, the revenue that they make, and the profits of the company, okay? In our world of supply chain management, we have a dramatic impact on profitability. How do we do that? Back to the point I made just a minute ago. We control a lot of the assets in the business. Distribution centers, all kinds of equipment, inventories, the things where there's a lot of investment that the company has to make to support the business, we control. So how well we control it has a direct impact on cost and it has a direct impact on sales. That's what we have to connect better to the C-suites in our companies so they really appreciate what the supply chain actually contributes to the business. That's the message of the last point. Global acumen and what does it mean? Just a breakdown for you. Really talk about some examples of what supply chain professionals need to focus on and think about when they think about this whole perspective. So it's regional and country-specific issues, it's networks, infrastructure, and operations. Those are things we think about a lot in the supply chain field, okay? But then it's into things like acquisition due diligence. If I want to grow in Asia, how do I do it? Do I acquire somebody? Do I go greenfield? Do I go brownfield? Do I outsource? What's my strategy for growing my supply chain structure to support global market penetration in that part of the world? Okay, so that's a good example of thinking more broadly. Risk management, okay? How many times do you read about companies that made outsourcing decisions and they said, this is a great deal, okay? We can save 50% or more on the labor costs, let's do it. Now, if you're a supply chain person, what do you think about a decision like that? You think about labor costs, that may be material, but is it the only thing that's material in making an outsourcing decision? You know for sure that it's not, okay? How about transportation costs? How about the fact that that sourcing point now is halfway around the world and the lead time has a dramatic impact on your inventory, okay? Your inventory is going to jump dramatically to be able to capture a 50% labor cost savings, but you didn't look at the implication of that, you know? So it's a whole bunch bigger issues, and now we have companies that are rethinking these decisions and figured out, you know, the first analysis that we made was flawed because we didn't think about all of these, including the risk management issues. Big issue around tax, trade, and governmental and environmental compliance. Those issues really have a big impact on supply chain decisions for where you put operations. Really a big impact. So you really have, from a supply chain standpoint, you need to be thinking about issues like that, which are outside of the traditional supply chain responsibility area. Obviously, we talked about the next point already a little bit, which is human resources, the cultural and business ethics side. One country may align a lot more closely to the type of business you run and the expectations you have for employee requirements and business ethics in your company compared to another one. So that's a really important aspect for you to think about. And then the last point is customer relationship management. A good example, one of the individuals on our Global Supply Chain Institute Advisory Board is the Executive Vice President of Global Supply Chain Management for Kraft. And he spoke out on this one at the board meeting, and here was his message. He said, Kraft has grown globally by acquisition. And as a result of growing by acquisition, they made decisions in many cases to send Americans to those global offices to run those businesses. And one of the things that they bumped into continuously is that the Americans didn't have this. And so they showed up to run a global office, in a country that they'd never lived in with 5 or 6 different cultures in the organization structure that they were responsible for, and they weren't prepared to be able to take on that kind of an obligation. And so Kraft stepped back from that and they said, oh, wait a minute, we really need to look at this a little bit differently. We need to look at, maybe it's a better choice for us to identify nationals, okay, develop nationals in our organization, and also then look for specific education programs that are available that we can educate our executives in this kind of capability. So they're better positioned to be able to work multiculturally in a global organization. So that's a really good example of the real world application of why this is so important. The research we've done in Tennessee, we also looked at others that were doing the same kind of research to say, what are the key gaps, okay? What are the key challenges as we look at supply chain organizations and supply chain professionals? And 2 places that we went were the Gartner Group. We have a lot of respect for them and the work that they do. They did an extensive survey in 2010, 2011, and they surveyed over 400 supply chain executives, okay, to say, looking at your organizations, where is it that you see a lot of these gaps? And here's what they said. They said that there are a lot of things that are really working well, okay? We see our people coming in from the university environment and having strengths in these kinds of areas, okay? Supply chain technology, a strength. Ability to integrate information, a strength. Ability to work in teams, a strength. Analytics, a strength, okay? But they said there are some areas that really require lots of additional development and focus. Problem solving, okay? They've got a great education. They've got lots of analytical skills, but they can't solve problems, okay? And that's a developmental process that's really a shortfall. We do a lot of work in the applied learning side of Tennessee to address that. But that's something that companies said is really a critical issue to address. Real-world experience. And then this one, which is global business leadership skills. It's what I was just talking about a minute ago, this global business leadership and acumen that's really important. We looked at a similar body of work that was done by Supply Chain Management Review in 2012. And their work, Gartner's work and our work, really complements each other. And they said, in their study, they said there's lots of areas, there's lots of opportunity for development in supply chain strategy. That's not surprising to me at all. We do work in that at the university, but people don't have the depth and knowledge of that, particularly when they come up a functionally structured organization. Supplier management and procurement is another area of deficiency. The international side also was identified as a significant deficiency by Supply Chain Management Review, and they also added customer relationships. And they said, you know, from our work, supply chain people just don't get out enough to visit with customers and understand the customer challenges, the customer requirements, the customer expectations. And I'm absolutely certain that's true. So, what does that tell us? It tells us that really dual development paths are really important now, okay? We know that core competencies in supply chain functions have to be there or our organizations won't be successful, okay? So you can't step away from that. But what you have to do is this one. You have to become a lot more focused in the cross-functional skills that work across the silos. The cross-functional skills that reach out to all of your network, okay, your supply chain partners, to be able to integrate them in a much more seamless supply chain solution. So that's really, really a critical issue. So it's all about dual development strategies, okay? And if you look at it individually, you know, what situation am I in? Okay? How well am I positioned based on my skills, my education, for future opportunities in the supply chain field, either with my current company or with opportunities I may want to pursue with other companies or perhaps even outside of the industry that I currently work in. Here's what we know. Okay? We know from our research that the first place to start is a competency assessment. If you're a company, you really need to do the work to assess the capabilities of your people compared to the needs of your business. Okay? If you're an individual, you need to go through a competency assessment. And my guidance to you is to do it outside of your own organization so you get a really objective viewpoint. Okay? S&OP does that kind of work. Gartner does that kind of work. There's lots of choices for competency type testing. But that'll really give you the perspective of what your own gaps and challenges are. And then you can start to look at step number 2, which in the company world is all about career path strategy. Okay, how am I developing my people? You know, do I have career development plans? And if I have career development plans, and I've got this gap analysis, what are my choices to provide the educational solutions, the developmental experiences that the people need? If I'm talking about me, it's what are my gaps, and then looking at the menu of alternatives that are out there to help me address those gaps. The menu of alternatives, we know that education is a critical component. There's lots of different choices for education. Professional societies, Daniel just talked about APEX as an example. There are solutions there focused specifically on types of gaps that you may have. That's a great choice to start. Executive education. There are a number of universities that specialize in executive education in the supply chain field. University of Tennessee is one of those. There are tailored solutions, the kinds of things that you do in your company that you may do either with your own people internally, or you bring consultants or people from academia in to develop custom programs to address some of the developmental requirements that you have. One other thing that we think is really, really important is this right here, global networking. How many of you regularly have contact with companies and executives outside your own industry? I didn't see a lot of hands go up. Okay? In my opinion, this is absolutely critical and very, very important for you to do. Some of the best supply chain ideas will come from outside of your own industry. You think that, well, since it's not in my industry now, how could they have something that's better than what I do? Or do they have something that would work in my industry? I can tell you hands down, working in 5 industries all over the world, that the consistent answer to the question is yes. You'll find lots of great ideas that you think, how can it be applicable to my industry? And then you'll see it is. Okay, so I really encourage you to get into forum structures, benchmark, look at best practices that are outside of your industry. It's going to be really well worth your time. And then collaboration, I think, also is a very, very key part of that opportunity. I'm going to wrap this up in about 2 or 3 slides because I know the buses leave really quickly for the stadium, and I know nobody wants to miss that either. So, if you look at executive education as an alternative, here's a couple of guideposts that I think are good ones for you to look at. Program structures and design. Make sure that you look at executive education programs that are structured for supply chain executives, okay? It's got the right curriculum content, and it's probably modular in structure because you want your executives to continue to work while they further their education. An integrated and applied curriculum, okay? Make sure that the education is going to bring a return on investment right back to the company. So what they learn has got direct application back to the company business. Leadership development. We just talked about global supply chain leadership skills and acumen. This is a really important component of the education process, okay? These people need to learn leadership leadership skills as well as supply chain skills to meet the needs of the business in the future. And network development is a really important one. They have an opportunity when they're in these executive education programs to meet peers from all over the world and establish a network that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Executive education pays off. 2010, this is the numbers. On average, about 11.4% increase in compensation as people completed executive degree programs, and 37% of those executive MBA graduates got promoted while they were going through the program. So you can see from the ROI standpoint for the student, that makes sense to do. The ROI standpoint for the company, the executive MBA programs that we run at the University of Tennessee have company projects in them, and the typical ROI to the company, depending on the program, is between $500,000 and $6.5 million. So it's big time ROI for the companies. I talked about this program. This is a 12-month, 4 two-week residency periods all over the world, online sessions integrated between the residency periods, 3 universities. And we developed it to focus specifically at the core competencies that I talked about earlier. Okay, so if you look at core competencies in problem solving, in real world experience, in global business leadership and acumen, we have specific things in this program that are focused directly at those kinds of capabilities that supply chain executives need in global business. 3 top universities, a curriculum driven by industry. Okay, so this is unique. You won't find it anywhere else. And that pretty well wraps us up. If you have any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them. But if you all get up and go out the door and head for the bus, I hope you do. Okay. Daniel and I appreciate you taking the time to join us. We hope our information has been helpful to you. And if you want to talk more, the University of Tennessee has a booth right in the main hall, so please stop by. If you'd like to contact us, there we are. Okay? Be delighted to talk to you. Thanks again. Any questions?
What are the 3 universities? I didn't quite.
Excuse me?
What were the 3 universities in the various places?
The 3 universities are UT, the Essex Business School, located in Paris and Singapore, and the Central European University Business School, located in Budapest, Hungary. Okay? Thank you. Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it a lot.